Hello and good Wednesday evening to you. I know it's coming late. I'm not going to probably be on this weekend live, so anyway, enough of that. I want to talk to you today about the eclipses that have been going on since 2017, which the full solar eclipse in 2017 really kicked off a whole, shitstorm of events and energies that we are still feeling today. I know I experienced it. There's a link, at the in the information below, which will take you to a previous live video that I did where I was talking about Trump's chart and specifically about the eclipse in 2017 in Leo, which I believe it was in September, wasn't it? In September. And I looked at Trump's chart, and I predicted that what was going to happen is that he was going to be, his reputation was going to be completely flipped upside down as a result of that 2017 solar eclipse, because it went right over the United States. And in Vedic astrology, bear in mind, if you're listening to this and you only know about Western astrology is when you pick up the newspaper, when somebody asks you what's your birth date, and they come right off the top of your head just with the date of your birth. For instance, mine is September 17th, 1963. They go, oh, you're a Virgo. That is Western astrology. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology has many similarities to Western astrology. They both Vedic and Western came from the same root astrological science. That's thousands and thousands of years old. But they go on different zodiacs. Western goes off of the tropical zodiac, which is the Earth relative, the sun, no, the Earth relative to the sun. The Vedic astrology goes off of the sidereal zodiac, which is the Earth relative to the sky above it. That has been shifting over the past 2,000 years, which means that when you look at a Western chart, when you open up the newspaper, what you're seeing is, number one, the sun sign of that, that's 24 degrees different than Vedic astrology, which wants to look first at your rising sign. So bear that in mind. In Vedic astrology, Trump is a Leo. His rising sign in Vedic astrology is Leo. So that means, according to Vedic astrology, when that solar eclipse hit in Leo and went over the United States while he was in office, it means his head took the brunt of that. Since he is a Leo in Vedic astrology, when in the 2017 full solar eclipse that happened, since that happened in Leo, it means that that eclipse went over his ascendant, which is his personality. The ascendant is the first house, which represents your head, your personality. So that means that anybody who is a Vedic Leo, and when that hit, especially if you're in the United States, it was going to have huge effects on you. Now, I happen to be a Leo as well. I'm a Leo, and I can tell you that right after that, you guys saw. All you have to do is go back and watch that video, and then start watching videos after that, and you will see my whole life come apart at the seams. And I'm on video weeping and crying, and just everything fell apart. At the same time, my business took off and went through the roof. So this is the kind of stuff that eclipses do. So when we're talking about eclipses in Vedic astrology, we're talking about the deity known as Rahu. Rahu is the north node of the moon in Vedic astrology, but he's much more than that. He is an actual deity. He represents the trickster god. He represents thieves. He represents criminals. He represents pornography. Are you seeing a pattern here? He represents hidden secrets. Now, when we have a solar eclipse, what tends to happen is Rahu, wherever he is especially focused in the sky at that time, he tends to reveal the secrets of that. Now, Leo by itself, which is again in Vedic astrology, the eclipse in 2017 happened in the sign of Leo. Leo is the lion, which represents kings, nobility, presidents, heads of state, those who have authority over others. So the president of the United States is the closest thing we have to an emperor in this world. Probably Putin is probably Putin is probably a better example of an emperor because he has more power than the president. He has more power than the president of the United States. But in terms of like the superpower and the history of the world up until just recently, the United States and the president of the United States is called the leader of the free world, the most powerful authority figure in the world. So when you have an eclipse that goes over Leo, especially over the country of the United States, you are going to see a huge shakeup in the authority structure and the power of the United States. And you can absolutely see that. I won't get into it. I know that this is a very controversial subject, especially for a lot of people who watch my channel. So I'll try not to, I'm sure I'm going to piss off somebody, but I'll try not to just go nuts about it. But we can all agree that the President of the United States represents the highest elite authority, at least publicly, in the world. There are lots of countries I'm sure you don't know that exist. If somebody were to ask you about Liechtenstein, you would probably scratch your head trying to figure out where is that again and who's the head of that? Is that a king you really don't know a hell of a lot about it. But everybody in Liechtenstein knows the United States and knows who the President of the United States is and has for a very long time. That's how much power we have, or at least we did. So I wanted to share with you in that last video, if you go back and watch it, I share with you how Rahu, the north node of the moon, is going to reveal Trump's hidden secrets. I revealed to you his personality and how he really was destined to become President of the United States. It's in his chart. It's unmistakably in his chart. And then I talked about how his rise to power was going to be followed directly by a complete inverse, where all the things that brought him to power were then going to turn on him and destroy his reputation and perhaps even put him in jail. So we've just had recently, if you've been watching the news, it's hard not to see. And bear in mind, I go back and forth between the two echo chambers of news. I'll watch MSNBC, and then I'll go and watch Fox News. So I watch them both. And I have to tell you that it is amazing the information that is not shared between those two. And, I'll watch, seriously, I don't care if you're a Trump fan. I'm telling you now, it's in your best interest to watch MSNBC, especially Rachel Maddow. I don't care what you think about her or her politics. She reveals things that are going to happen in terms of the Mueller investigation and in terms of all kinds of other stuff. She reveals all kinds of, hidden stuff that Trump and his dealings. And so I watch that because it's very interesting, and I wait to see if that stuff manifests. And then I'll go and watch Fox News. And Fox News will have things like, some guy with a gun shot somebody, and why guns are good, and and Trump this, and how Hillary Clinton and Obama, and all this other like seriously hardcore pro-Trump stuff. but they won't talk about what's happening like in the courts and all that kind of stuff. So you guys are missing out on a lot of information. And again, that's what the news is supposed to be. The news is not supposed to be something that you watch that influences your beliefs or your opinions. It is only there to give you vital information. That's its only purpose. So when you watch, I mentioned Rachel Maddow. Now, Rachel Maddow, even though she gives a lot of information, she has her own bias, and that's very clear. But when you talk about like Sean Hannity and those guys, that is pure entertainment. That is pure opinion. That is not journalism. Journalism is giving of facts, and you have to be able to back those facts up. And so that's really, you want to get to that stuff. So I'm telling you, if you're a Fox News junkie and that's the only thing that you watch, I don't want to necessarily change your opinion of Trump one way or the other, but you do need to get information on what's happening, because as more of this stuff comes out, you're going to be hit with, where the hell did that come from? And we had one of those weeks today where Michael Cohen voluntarily pleaded guilty to a bunch of crimes. And in case you're wondering, he is not. It is not a plea deal. He has not made a deal with the Mueller investigation or with any prosecutors. So he has no deal on the table. Whatever may have gone, in the back rooms, I don't know. But he has not signed any, agreement with anybody, and he is not eligible at this point for any reduction of sentences. He has voluntarily come out and given very damning information. I won't go into it. You can watch Trump. You can watch the news and you'll find out. I'm sure it's even leaking onto Fox News. Even Fox News has to talk about it because it's too big, not for them not to talk about it. So, on the very same day that happened, Paul Manafort, who was Trump's campaign manager for a limited period of time, he was on trial, as you know, and he was found guilty on 8 counts of all kinds of stuff. And he has another trial, in case you didn't know. He has another trial coming up later on. So he's going to be tried for some other things. Now, both of these things are very bad for Trump, potentially because both of these were trusted advisors of Trump who had close ties with Trump. And, we haven't seen it in Manafort yet, but if you watch the trail of breadcrumbs that Mueller is very specifically laying down, he is laying down a wall around Trump, which is going to be about obstruction of justice, and it is going to be about conspiracy. Now, you can argue whether or not collusion is a crime or not. It's not. There's no such thing as a crime called collusion. But collusion is another word for conspiracy, and if the conspiracy in and of itself isn't a crime unless you conspire with somebody to commit a crime. You don't have to actually do the crime, you just have to conspire to do the crime. That means sit down and talk about, should we do this and should we do that, and okay, I don't want to do that. Just sitting down and having that discussion with, in this case, a foreign power to do something that is considered a crime, that is conspiracy. So the question is whether or not this is a conspiracy that is a crime. So just bear in mind, this is coming. I'm just telling you. I'm not giving you the spin on my opinion on it. I'm telling you. I told you in the last thing what was coming. Now, to be fair, I thought that it was going to happen a lot sooner than this. I thought Trump was going to resign, which he still might do. If the heat gets bad enough, he might do a Nixon thing, and he might resign. I don't know. To be honest, he has accomplished. I don't mean that in a positive way. I just mean that he has been able to avoid scandal like nothing I've ever seen in my entire almost 55 years. I'm going to be 55 in a couple weeks. I have never seen anybody. I mean, if you're a young person, let's say if you're in your 20s, I can promise you, you do not understand how revolutionary Trump is. You have no clue how revolutionary this man is. For him to be able, I mean, I'm just going to pick one. For him to be able to say, and for it to be publicly aired, that he is proud of the fact that he can go and grab women by the pussy because he is a celebrity. That would have killed anybody. That would have destroyed them for life. I could go and list a bunch of other things that, you know, that amazingly he has survived. But we've never seen anything like him. And he definitely represents Rahu coming in and completely changing the landscape for politics in the United States. It may even mean the destruction of the United States as we know it. And I mean that very seriously. This may be the beginning of the end. I don't say that with any fear, because the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to break up into a bunch of different countries. I'm in the strongest state, you know, of the Union. California by itself is a you know, like the, I don't know, 3rd largest economy in the world or something like that, or 10th largest or something. So I'm set. I'm okay where I'm at, but you know, but things are definitely changing, and he was the instrument of that change. He's changed politics forever, because there were just, the way that things were done has been, I mean, he literally was like a hand grenade. He was a hand grenade that if you threw it into the White House and into Congress, that's what he is. And he's not done. He is also the kind of guy that, you know, he's one of those guys that if you trap him in the house and you surround him, you know, like the Waco thing, you know, you surround him with a bunch of ATF guys with guns, he's going to burn the whole house down and himself in it before he surrenders. So he's not done. He's not done dismantling our government. And I'm not saying that, again, with any judgment one way or the other. If you like him, then you think it's great. You think he's draining the swamp. If you don't like him, then you think he's destroying our democracy. But no matter how you look at it, everybody has to agree he is completely nuking the government of the United States and our way of government, how we work. I mean, he literally is nuking relationships. And again, I'm not saying that with any judgment, it's just a fact. Germany, France, Canada, China, making friends. The first president to ever sit down and shake hands with the leader of North Korea, unilaterally by himself stopping war games with South Korea. What we do I mean, when he did that, all of our military went, "What? You did what?" Not to mention South Korea and everybody else went, "What?" This is what he is. He just doesn't follow any rules. He just does whatever comes. I mean, he speaks that way. Whatever the hell he is in the front of his head falls out of his face. So I'm not judging it one way or the other. Now, I'm going to show you that this is who he is based on his chart. So first off, he is a Leo. So I'm a Leo. In Vedic astrology, not Western astrology, Vedic astrology, please go figure out the difference. Don't send me notes about Trump isn't a Leo, he's a whatever the hell his Western sign is. I'm not talking about that. His rising sign in Vedic is Leo, and in Vedic, that's his sign. That's his personality. So Leo he's already set up to be the king. That's his personality. You know me, I'm extremely outspoken. I don't take shit from anybody. Anybody even begins to start criticizing me, I slice them to pieces. That is the king. The king will not tolerate dissension among the masses. Trump is a Leo. Now, I've got Moon in my first house in Leo, which means that even though I am Leo, I have the ability, at least some of the time, to admit when I make a mistake. Moon gives me the ability to look at things and to say, listen, I'm sorry. I apologize, I was wrong. Trump does not have Moon in his first house. He has Mars in his first house. So that makes him the king who is like the warrior. He goes in and destroys and conquers. And when you have Mars, it's like Mars in Leo is when you have a general, like think of the most brutal general you can think of. And then he becomes king. So he rules with an iron fist, he destroys his enemies, and he never apologizes under any circumstances. Sound like Trump? I've never once heard him apologize for anything. Well, maybe once, but he was forced to. And I've never once heard him really take full responsibility for any mistakes. Now, you can say that's a good thing. That can make him very successful in a lot of ways, but you can also see that when you got somebody who's that staunch, it's very difficult to, can't backpedal after that. So he's got Mars in first house in Leo. Now, here's where it really gets interesting. In his fourth house in Scorpio, Scorpio is a Mars sign, he has Ketu and Moon. Ketu is the south node of the Moon. Now, I've been talking about Rahu, so let's go over what Rahu is. Rahu is the north node of the Moon. It represents your ambition, your ego, like your negative ego, like the worst parts of your ego. It represents your ambitions, your ego, your addictions, your obsessions, as well as your aspirations and your hopes. Rahu represents what brings you back into incarnation. So let's talk about why we incarnate. It has nothing to do with paying for karma or sins. It has nothing to do with false beings of light forcing you to go back and feeding off of you. The reason why you incarnate is because you have unfulfilled desires. There might be some shame or some tragedy attached to it in a previous life. You died before you could save your child, and you'll carry that with you. And so in your next life, you incarnate and then you become a lifeguard. See what I mean? So Rahu represents why you are brought back. You want to be rich and famous this time, and so you've never had that. Your soul wants to come back for that reason. Ketu, on the other hand, represents what takes you out of this world. Ketu represents the tail of the snake. Rahu is the head of the snake. The head has been chopped off, so it's just nothing but a head full of desires that can never be fulfilled. The tail of the snake, the body of the snake, has no head, has no desires, has no eyeballs, has no mind, has no identity, represents taking you out of this world. So wherever Ketu is, Ketu represents mindless destruction. If Ketu is in somebody's chart in a very negative way, it can turn them into like an arsonist, or turn them into a serial killer, can turn them into a terrorist. Terrorism is just going and blowing people up. You don't even know who they are, and you don't even know why you're doing it. You just have this instinct, because it's just the body. It's just an instinct. You have this strong instinct, and you don't have any brain. You don't think twice about it. You just go and do it. That's the worst side of Ketu. The positive side of Ketu is that Ketu destroys the physical limitations, destroys the physical illusion, and takes you straight to the spirit. So Ketu wants to get to the truth, but he does that by taking you out of this material world. Okay, now I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a Vedic chart. I only want you to look on the square on the left, and you're going to see where it says number 8. You're going to see a number 8, which is the 4th house. Just trust me, you don't have to know anything about astrology. Just know that that's the 4th house. And you'll see two short words. One is Ke, which stands for Ketu, and then you'll see Mo, which stands for Moon. And you'll see Ketu says 27 degrees and Moon says 28 degrees. That means that they're conjunct. Okay? So opposite that, you'll see where it says number 2 is the 10th house. Trust me, it's the 10th house. And again, this is just in the square on the left. So just look at the square on the left. And you'll see 3 words. You'll see UR, which is Uranus. Don't bother with that. We don't deal with that in Vedic astrology. Rahu is RA and SU is Sun. And Rahu is at 27 and Sun is at 29. Okay? So look at those because they're directly opposite each other. The 4th house, which will be on your left, represents your home life, your mother. The 10th house, which is directly opposite that, represents your career. So the home versus the career, being at home, being out in the world, when you're by yourself, and your fame when others see you. It also represents your father. So we'll find out about his relationship to his mother, and we'll find out about his relationship to his father. And then we'll find out about his home life versus his career. Okay? So take a look at that very quickly. Okay, so don't worry about it. If you don't know anything about astrology, don't worry about it. I'll explain it to you. So in the 4th house, Ketu and Moon. Ketu and Moon in Scorpio. So Scorpio means it's going to bring some difficulty with the home life and some difficulty with the mother. Just having that in your 4th house is going to cause distance between the mother. There's going to be some kind of pain associated, separation between you and your mother. It's possible. I mean, that was certainly the case with me. I'm a Leo. But now you have Ketu and Moon. So you have Moon in there as well, which represents the mother. But Moon represents your mind, not your intellect. Your intellect is what you do when you read books and you memorize things and, you do what I do and you pick things apart and you analyze things. That's your intellect. That's Mercury. Moon is your mind. Moon is your emotions and your ability to see things objectively. So whenever you have the moon conjunct with another planet, that other planet is going to have a very strong effect on a person's emotions and their ability to think objectively or meditatively. Here we have Ketu. I've told you what Ketu is. Ketu takes you out of this world. Now, Ketu and Moon together can make somebody a very powerful shaman. But when you have Ketu having the lowest amount of degrees, which is what you have here, it means that Ketu sits in the mind. So the being that is responsible for taking us out of this physical world is dominating his mind. When he is by himself, because this also is the 4th house, it represents when he's at home, by himself, trying to nurture himself. It means that he never feels at home, number 1. His mind is always being taken somewhere else. He can't ever ground his mind or his emotions. It means that when he tries to look at things objectively, Ketu comes in and takes it away from him. And if you notice, I do this too, but if you'll notice with him, it's very hard for him sometimes to finish a thought. He will be talking and he'll get a few words out before he interrupts himself and then starts on something else, and then sometimes he just doesn't make any sense. He sticks his foot in his mouth. You got to admit, he gets himself in more trouble than anybody else. Tweeting at all hours of the morning and confessing to things on the news, like confessing a year ago when he said that he fired Comey because of the Russia thing. I mean, that's Ketu right there. Ketu just makes you not think objectively. You're just wrapped up in the moment. So he can't really he can't really meditate on things, and meditation gives you the ability to see things in the long run. So a good moon, a good mind gives you the ability to stand back and go, if I do this now, then wow, I can see how that's going to affect them and this down the road. Let me meditate on how to do that. If Ketu is in there, it means that you are very impulsive. You just do whatever comes to you in the moment. This is what he's like when he's at home. Okay? Now, remember, Rahu and Sun were in his 10th house. So the opposite of being at home is being at work. Your career, your fame, how people see you. Here he has Rahu and Sun conjunct. So remember, Rahu, it represents your ambition, your obsession. Now, when Rahu is in the 10th house, which is where Rahu is, Rahu wants to own the world. He also wants to be the most famous person in existence. So you'll see people with Rahu in the 10th house, they want fame. They want fame, they want fortune, they want power. Now, he's got Rahu combined with the Sun. Now, when you have the Sun in the 10th house, you have a king. That is one of the places you will find a king. Sun represents the government and all that. So when Sun sits there in the 10th house, it means your fame will be as a leader. Remember, Leo is that. Now, Rahu and Sun comes together. What ends up happening is that when Rahu combines with any planet, he explodes that planet. So Sun is your pride, is your ego, as well as your soul and your spirituality. But when Sun sits in the 10th house, he wants to be the ruler of the world, the king, the business mogul, you know, rich and powerful. You bring Rahu in there, Rahu and Sun together, you can see this becomes, you have somebody who is a narcissist, who is all about themselves. And not only all about themselves, they want to be the most powerful, the most famous, the richest, the most successful. Now, this could turn somebody into a very successful person, obviously. But Rahu is taking shortcuts. He is robbery and crime and thieving and prostitutes. He's the shortcut to everything. So when Rahu is conjunct the Sun, we want to see who has the lowest number of degrees. And here Rahu has 27 degrees and Sun has 29 degrees. They're very close together. Rahu is sitting in the throne, because the Sun represents the throne. Rahu is sitting in the throne. So you have the thief, the murderer, the rapist, the killer, the con man. Rahu is a con man. And you have the pimp, because Rahu also represents prostitution and pornography. This is now sitting in the throne of the king. Now, if it were just like this by itself, this could very well represent a very powerful dictator who rules with an iron fist and is unassailable. That has definitely been the case with Trump, no matter what Trump says or does. No matter what he says or does. Things that, I mean, and we could go on. I mean, there's so many, we're numb to it. I don't care whether you like him or you hate him. You realize the guy is Teflon. No matter what he says, it just doesn't stick. That's because he's got Rahu and Sun in the 10th house, and Rahu is sitting in the power. He can distract you, you know, from and get away with it forever. Now when we look at where somebody goes in their life as they get older, we want to look at the D9. So that big square on the left is called the D1, which is your birth chart, which represents the blueprint for your life. And then the D9 represents all kinds of things, but among other things, it represents how your energies want to change as you get older. So as you get older, the D9 chart becomes more important, more influential. It doesn't change your D1, but the influences of it become much stronger. Okay? So let's take a look at that. And what you're going to see is a complete shift. Because in the D1 you saw Ketu and Moon in the 4th house, and you saw Rahu and Sun in the 10th house. Now, whenever something switches like that from the D1 to the D9, it's very significant. And what you have here is, in Trump's chart in the D9, you have Rahu and Sun in the 4th, not in the 10th, and you have Ketu and Moon in the 10th, not in the 4th. They completely shift, which means that as he gets older, and now he's pushing 70. He's technically in the last stages of his life. Now what you're going to see is the influences of the D9, and it's a complete opposite in terms of his home life and his career. Complete shift. 180 degrees. So take a look at that and compare the big square on the left, the 4th house and the 10th house, and the big square on the right, the 4th house and the 10th house. You'll see Rahu, Ketu and Moon and Rahu and Sun switch places. So you don't need to be a genius to figure out what that means. It means that you're going to have a complete flip from one to the other. You are going to have the emperor who rules the world with an iron fist and is unassailable, who can break every single law, who changes the rules about everything and is untouchable, into a criminal, into somebody who ends up going to jail. It's going to be the complete opposite. So let's get even more deeper. We've talked about this already. So what this means is that when he's at home now, before when he was at home, he had a hard time thinking. Before, when he was at work, he was able to do this and do that, and he had all this authority, and he could cut corners and cheat and lie if he needed to and do whatever and rule with an iron fist, and it didn't matter what happened, he was Teflon, and he was successful in whatever he chose to do. But at home, he couldn't think. He couldn't get his thoughts together. He couldn't get his mind together. He never felt at home. He always felt uncomfortable. As you know, he doesn't sleep very well. He doesn't sleep very much. But now what's going to happen is things are going to flip 100%, where his persona at home is going to be where he's at work, which means he's not going to be able to think very clearly. He's not going to be able to think objectively in long terms. He's going to be very, he's going to just speak whatever comes in his mind. He won't be able to finish his thoughts or his sentences. What he says won't make any sense. He won't know the difference between what's happening now and what's happening later. You'll notice that one of his favorite phrases is, well, many people have said. When somebody catches him in a lie, he'll oftentimes say, well, many people have said. Or if he's saying something that he knows is untrue or that he's not comfortable with or secure with, he will say, and I believe such and many other people believe that as well. Which means Ketu is taking away his ability of his mind to look at objective reality, which means he doesn't know what objective reality is anymore. I could go into a bunch of mistakes that he's made, but I won't take the time to do that. And then what ends up happening is that at home, he then tries to become the ruler who, the king of the world in his own home. So what this means is that if the D1 chart shows the rise of the invincible dictator of the world, the D9 shows the fall, the absolute failure. Now we bring that into with Rahu. Now we're talking about eclipses. I shared with you what happened in the 2017 eclipse. I shared with me and Trump being a Vedic Leo, Vedic, not Western, Vedic Leo. As that hit him, it had a huge effect on him, and it was going to completely take all of his secrets out. All of his secrets would come to light. Here's what I'm predicting is going to happen. I could be wrong, but I think based on what just happened yesterday, I think I'm right. Here's what I think is going to happen. Since what Rahu does is that Rahu reveals all of the hidden secrets. Once we had the 2017 eclipse, that began a process where all of Trump's secrets were going to start to come to the surface. We've seen that. He's been getting himself deeper and deeper. I mean, he got himself into this. Had he not fired Comey and then taken responsibility and said that he chose to fire Comey because of the Mueller or because of the Russia investigation, if he had not said that, there would be no need for Mueller. So he gets himself into his own trouble. So we're seeing him do that. Now, we've had a succession of eclipses this year. We've had 2 solar and 2 lunar eclipses. Now, they haven't been complete. I think we had 1 complete lunar eclipse. But each one of those eclipses sort of adds another thump to the effect of the eclipse that happened in 2017. And so it hasn't just been one incident where we had the eclipse in 2017 and let's sit back and watch what happens. We've had the eclipse in 2017 which basically opened things up. And then there has been 4 more attacks, which what Rahu does is he wants to bring out more of the hidden facts. And I think now what we've seen since what has happened is we had the last one, which was August 11th, the last eclipse. I think that was the final punch from Rahu. Boom, because what happens right after that? Right after that, we have Cohen. Cohen doesn't get, let's just be clear about what just happened with Cohen. Cohen didn't get busted and then go through a trial, and then through the trial we found this, that, or the other thing out. He comes out, he stands up in front of a judge, and he voluntarily pleads guilty and confesses to a bunch of crimes. He hadn't even been, on trial for this. He, without any defense whatsoever, without any attempt to defend himself from any of it, goes and proclaims his guilt in all of these things. And on top of that, he publicly accuses Trump of a crime. He basically said, yes, I did this felony. I committed this felony to influence the election, and I did so at the direct command of Trump. Now, if you haven't been getting that information from watching Fox News, you need to be getting your information from other sources, because that you've got to get the facts. And as much as you may love Fox News, they're not giving you all of the news. They're only giving you the news that the Trump fans want to hear. But eventually it's going to come out. I'm going to make some predictions because I think this is the beginning of Rahu just going in and bringing out more and more secrets. I think now is the beginning of the end. Watch. It's Trump, whenever he hits a bump, he gets back up and he gets... I don't think he's going to get up from this. I think this is the beginning of, when somebody starts to trip, and they start to trip and they keep tripping until they get 3/4 of the way across the room and then they crash through the window. This is the first one. He's now going to try and he'll probably keep from falling on his face, maybe for the next few months, maybe a year, but it's just going to be him trying to keep from falling head first out the window, and then he finally will. He'll go out the window. And here's what I think is going to happen. What is going to come to light is that since the 1980s, Trump was being groomed by Putin. Now, here's some information that you may not know, but it's going to come out, especially when the Mueller investigation is finished. And trust me, he has information, the likes of which, as Trump would say, the likes of which the world has not seen. There's information that he has, and I can tell because of the way he's setting up his convictions. He is tightening a noose around Trump, and he's gonna cut him out. He's going to cut his balls off. Well, what we're going to find out is that in the 80s when Trump went bankrupt. Remember that? He tried to go into the casino business and he failed miserably. He went bankrupt. He didn't have any money. Russians came to him, and bear in mind that Putin is not only a president, but he is also the leader of the Russian mob, which is the oligarchs. These rich Russian, businessmen are all also mobsters. And Putin is the head. He's like the head of a giant, international mob ring. And so just like the mob, if the mob comes to you and says, hey, do you need some money? I can give you some money. Here's a few $1,000,000. Hey, don't worry about it. Just take the money. You go take care of things. If we need something from you, we'll let you know. Don't worry about it. We're going to find out that Trump has been laundering money for the Russians since the 80s. If you remember when he got up there and was in Helsinki, go back and watch it. I don't care what you think of him. Go back and watch it. You will see a very frightened man. And Trump is not frightened of anybody. He was frightened of this guy. He has never once said anything negative about Putin, ever. And he said horrible things about guys that have nuclear weapons pointed directly at us. This means that this guy has something on him. We're going to find out exactly what that is. This is all going to come to light in the next few months, maybe over the next year. This is just the beginning. And I think this is going to be the direct result of Rahu coming in, boom, in 2017 and revealing the secrets of the elite, revealing the secrets of the king, and has been continuing to take stabs and continued attacks on that and continuing to reveal. And now I think the lid is finally open. With this last eclipse, the lid has finally come open now, and now what we're going to see is all kinds of stuff coming out. This is just the beginning. So I'm going to take a break. I don't need to take a whole lot of questions because it's already late. I will take some questions if need be. It's great if you want to ask me questions about astrology. If you want to get an astrological reading from me, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. And you can learn where your Rahu is and your Ketu. You can learn how your D1 and your D9 are going to change, which means how you were born and how you're going to change as life goes on. For instance, me, I was born small. I almost died at birth, just to give you an example. I was born at least a month early, perhaps even more than that. And I was put in an incubator, almost died. I was a little kid. I was always the shortest kid in school. I got picked on, blah, 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 blah. And here I am now, totally different. Nobody messes with me. I walk down the street. People get out of my way. That's because I have Saturn in the 6th house in Capricorn, which means as I get older, Saturn, which is in the house of enemies, destroys my enemies. And just again talking about me, I have Ketu and Moon, which move from in the 1st house. In the D1 chart, they move into the 8th house in the D9 chart, which means that as I get older, I'm going to become an astrologer and a shaman and what I am now. So if you want to find out how your life is going to change from where you were when you grew up to as you get older, you can get an astrology reading from me and I can help you with that. Astrology.thunderwizard.com. If you want to ask a question, please just type the word question and then I will answer it. I'm not going to read anybody's statements. I don't care, if you want to argue with me about Trump or if you have some cool thing. I'm really not interested in what you have to say. I'm only interested in answering your questions. So if you want my attention, just write question and then put your question after that. Otherwise, I will bypass you just because I'm a Leo and I can do that. All right, so I'll see you in a couple of minutes and we'll see what happens. All right. All right, so we're back now. All right, so let's see if we have any questions. Interestingly, there wasn't a whole lot of questions. There was as I thought, there was a couple of trolls, and I got rid of them. Only because I don't want to deal with it. By the way, I'm doing this on a Wednesday late at night because I may be busy this weekend. I'll try and get on and do some videos this weekend, but it's possible I might be AWOL because I'm trying to have an actual life. And anyway, we'll see what happens. But that's why I'm here tonight, so at least I can get something done. So let's see here. Cosmo Joe, question. I can max out my bodily capacity to hold energy fast. Too much to store in Dantian bones. So where do I put it? Well, first off, that is an assumption. That may be your experience, but do you really know that to be true? Maybe you do, I don't know. But I mean, you're assuming that whatever it is you're experiencing means that you've reached your capacity. It also shows me your mentality about it. Again, you have an assumption that what you need to do is fill your body with energy, like a paper bag or like a balloon or something. So first thing I would say to you is I would get rid of that focus. When I do Qigong, I'm not trying to fill myself up like a balloon. I may feel filled with energy, but that's not my focus. What I'm doing is I'm seeking to become a conduit for energy so that not only do I flood my whole body and my energy system with energy, but then I also become a conduit for infinity. So, by the way, in case you don't know what we're talking about, go to here, qigong.thunderwizard.com, and you'll find out what we're talking about, which is energy work, where you can fill yourself with the power of the universe. That right there, in my experience, bar none, is the most powerful energy practice I have ever come across, and I've been doing this for nigh on 30 years now. So that's what we're talking about. That's what this question is. So first off, I would get rid of that. Stop trying to fill yourself up. Again, you know, Cosmo Joe, we keep having this interaction where I keep dismantling some of your intellectualizations, and that is coming from a limited place. Again, that's a limited place. You're trying to fill your limited body with energy. So that's an assumption that that's how it's supposed to be. So get rid of that. This is the difference between the intellect and the mind. The mind is infinite and the intellect is finite. So don't do Qigong from the intellectual standpoint, do it from the emotional standpoint. It's like being in the ocean. So when you do Qigong, imagine that you're in a pool. Oh, this pool is pretty big. Now you're not going to be able to, you know, feel with your body all of the water in that pool. But you will be influenced by the water in that pool. If somebody jumps in, you know, the waves that come in are going to affect you. Now go out and swim in the ocean. Drop yourself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You are still in connection to all of that ocean, but there's no way you're going to be able to feel all of it. But you will certainly feel what happens if a hurricane comes up, or if, you know, a storm comes up, or, you know, whatever. That's how Qigong is. Qigong is just simply connecting you to the life force of the universe. It's infinite. You're finite. You're going to continue to grow and expand, and you should, in the beginning, try and open up your meridians and fill your dantians. You should do that in the beginning, but once you get to a certain point where you sounds like you are, where you feel like you filled yourself up, then stop trying to fill yourself up and try to empty yourself and become one with that giant ocean of energy. Okay? And again, I hear in that question your desire to become immortal, your desire to stave off death. These are all still coming from places of fear. You know, I know you're not feeling like afraid necessarily, but the limitation in that. And I know because I used to be there. But now when I do Qigong, I don't think about how much energy that I have, like how big my spiritual muscles are. I don't think like that anymore. I think about, how deeply I can go into that ocean of awareness, that ocean of energy. So to answer your question, you don't have to do anything to get any more energy. If you feel like, if you feel like you say, if I'm reading this right, you feel like later on you say you feel like a balloon. Well, then you need to just relax. Let it pop. Remember in the beginning you were afraid to just be torn apart by the nothingness. And I recommended that you let yourself go there, experience that, because that was your fear. Now you're having a fear of having too much energy. So, if in doubt, you can always do the Hool breath. For those of you who don't know what that is, that is probably the best, all-around energy meditation I have. And that you have to connect to heaven and earth. You're just a conduit. And so no matter how strong the energy gets, it's okay because you're just a conduit. You're not like filling yourself up. So if you feel like you're filling yourself up, now start trying to connect that. Now connect all that energy to infinity. Okay? You'll have to go through another death, but that's how you can do it. Robin Pruitt question. You did ask the right question. Where do I then best send that energy? Do the heaven-earth Qigong meditation. It's another one you can find on my channel. Do that. Anybody listening, go look for it on my channel. If you don't know how to do it, first let me say to you, if you want to get the most out of my channel, go on to my channel and learn how to search within my channel. You can also look at my playlists. If you don't know what Qigong is, go look for it. Qigong. Go look for it. If you want to find out something in my channel, don't type at the top of the YouTube bar, Heaven Earth Qigong, because you'll get everything out and you won't get mine. Learn how to search from within my channel. That's going to take some time and some effort. I know that's difficult for some of you. You have to put some time and some effort and coordination into figuring how to do that. But once you can type any word you want and see all of the videos that I have. Runes, Qigong, meditation, Trump, astrology, Norse mythology, whatever. They'll all come up. So learn how to do that for those of you who are new. Robin, so to answer your question, where then best send that energy? Send it, become a conduit. Send it to heaven, send it to earth. Sit there in the middle and let heaven and earth send energy through you. And just be there and enjoy that. That will cleanse you and empower you. The heaven earth Qigong meditation is one of those things that if that's the only thing you did for the rest of your life, you wouldn't need anything else and you can achieve enlightenment, immortality, power, magic. It'll all happen for you. Robin Pruitt, question. Are you familiar with the Celtic Morrigan Raven Queen? Well, again, Robin, as you know, I try not to talk about things outside of what I teach. So as you know, I teach Norse mythology. I teach Vedic astrology, Vedic mythology. That's what I teach. So it doesn't please me as the king when people want to ask me about stuff outside of that. So if you want to ask me about Celtic stuff, I don't know anything about Celtic stuff, and it's a little bit offensive to me because you know that, and I know you don't mean anything by it. I'd prefer that you keep your questions to what I teach. I can help you with that. I don't know anything about Celtic anything, so even if I wanted to help you, I could. Mad Sweeney's Beer question, as we grow older, should we focus more on the D9? It's not so much that you should focus more on the D9. Let me again show you those. Right? Okay, so the one on the left here, you can just see it. I point out. The one on the, here we go. The one on the left is the D1. That is your birth chart. That's you. That's like how you were stamped. That's your DNA stamp. The one on the right is the D9, which means the ninth divisional. It means if you take the ninth house and you surgically cut it open and look at it, that's what you're seeing. The ninth house is your spirituality. It's the house of your dharma, your orlog, your luck. It's all kinds of things. It's the most important chart next to the D1 chart. And that's why you always see the D1 and the D9 next to each other. So it's not so much that you should focus more on that. It's just that you look at that to see where your energy wants to go. Right? So for instance, my moon is in my first house. My Ketu is in my fifth house. And in my D9, my Ketu and my moon are both in the 8th house. That means that my mind wants to go to the 8th house and my shamanic energy wants to go to the 8th house. Moon and Ketu together make for a very powerful shaman. Shaman in the sense of an intuitive shaman, somebody who is more of an empath. Which is, by the way, when people ask questions, I'm always doing things like, you know, it makes me want to ask you about this, and I'm getting this feeling from your question. That's part of the reason I can smell what's going on under the surface and I can get right to it. And that's why a lot of times I say, what you're really wanting to asking me is, it's coming from that. Now, you can, I get my, my Leo rising gets in there and I'm very full of myself, and my Mars in the 3rd house is very direct, so I communicate very directly at you, and so you can complain about that. But underneath it, that's where it is. So when I look at my D9, I'm seeing how my talents are coming out and where my energies want to go. That's how you want to compare the D1 to the D9. And the D9 does become more prominent as you get older, but even when you're younger, you can look at it and go, oh, I can start moving in that direction. That's where I'm going to want to go. By the way, it's not until you're about 35 and older that you really find out who you are and what you want to do. Again, myself is a perfect example. I started out as a, I've started out as like a surfer, delinquent until I was 18, and then I went to, had a total like Christian, spiritual whatever, and I studied Greek and Latin, which is why I know so much about Indo-European languages, and I studied philosophy and history, which is why I focus so much on that. And then I tried to become an evangelist, and then I decided I was going to leave Christianity altogether, and then I went and became an actor, and I got a bachelor's in theater, and then I went out and started my own theater company and did movies and plays and blah, blah, blah. And then right around 31 to 35, my acting career came to a complete end, and I had to start all over again, and here I am now. You can see that in my D9 chart. So if you're before the age of 35, it's okay that you don't know what you are yet. You should you'll always go after what you want, your deepest desires, but just know that by the time you get to be 35, you're going to shift, and then you'll find out who you really are. So that's kind of what the D9 can do for you. If, like me, you hit your 30s and you had a total shift in your life, which I've seen a lot of people do, they get to be about 30 or 35, and then they either have to really find themselves or they regress and they become their parents. Like I remember as a kid hanging out with we were hippies back then. I was hanging out with all these hippies, and we were in all this free this and free that and hippie this and hippie that. And a lot of them, by the time they got to be 30 or 35, they turned into their parents. They're born-again Christians. They're hard right-wing fundamentalists, or they're right-wing, gun-toting NRA members. Not judging it. It's just completely different from where they were when I was a kid. So they regress and they become just like their parents. So lots of times people have to make that decision, and it happens right around that time, between 31 and 35. You can't put that in stone, but that's basically from an astrological perspective, an astrologer, never really, whatever somebody's doing up until 31 or 35, it's just sort of like, let's let them get that out of their system, and then they'll figure out who they are. And from that, we look in your chart to see that. All right. So let's see if there are any more questions. I will try and make this brief so that I can perhaps get some sleep. Robert Pruitt, question, what Norse god belongs to each of the planets? I do believe that I've talked about that. If you want to go on my channel, again, let me say this to everybody. If you're really interested in learning what I teach, go onto my channel, binge watch my videos, and you will find that out. I think I put that in, I think at least a couple of times. So watch, I think I've made a video about the planets and the gods, a couple of different videos about that. So you can go and watch that. So I don't want to go into all of that right now. I prefer that you watch the videos and find out about it. But it's not as, see, the thing about Vedic astrology is that even more so than, well, like the Hindu gods, they have a very specific planetary vibration and connection. That's not as completely true with the Vedic, because, for instance, like Indra, who is technically Jupiter, Indra is also the sun, the moon, and Mars. Sun, moon, Mars, and Jupiter is Indra has all of those in there. He's got a very strong solar as well as moon and Jupiterian. But if you had to pick one, you would say he's Jupiter. Now that's not true. As you get into the Hindu deities, you have very specific deities for very specific planets. The Norse gods don't do that quite as much. We can say that Odin is Mercury, but even as I say that, Odin says, you can't limit me to just Mercury. So it's a smart question, but that's the reason why I don't really talk about it as much, because it's like the Vedic. The Vedic deities come from a time before they were even more delineated into very specific energies. We're talking about root deity energies, and you can't really classify them and smash them into just one planet as easily. They may go, definitely Odin, if you had to pick one planet, Mercury would be the best one to pick, but he's definitely not confined to Mercury. All right. What is this? Liam Nobaudi says, okay, that's not a question. So if you want to get my attention, you got to ask a question. And I'm really not interested in your opinions about Hillary or Trump. And I know you may not have known that because I didn't tell you, but we're not going to do that here. So the only thing I want is your questions, not your comments. All right, Cosmo Joe, question. If I meditate deep, I connect to something and the top of my head opens up and I feel a huge influx of energy. That sounds pretty good. A lot of people want that. Then I feel like a balloon about to pop. So you need to stop trying to hold on to the energy. Go ahead and pop. It means you're trying too hard to contain it. It doesn't want to be contained. When you feel that open, then release. Imagine your body slipping away. Imagine your boundaries slipping away, and let the energy flow out of you. The only reason it feels like you're going to pop is because you're trying to hold it in. That's your intellect again. Remember, the intellect wants to keep you separate and small. Intellect says, I'm here, that's there. The moon, the mind says, I'm here and I'm there. I am you and I am me. All of that new agey stuff. That's what the moon likes to do. So go from the moon, not from the intellect. Yeah, don't try and shove. Listen, if I put it into the dantian, it feels like a hard rock. Don't try and shove it into your dantian. Don't smash it in there. Let your dantian open up as well. I want you to fundamentally change your idea about this. There is a practice out there which a lot of people, there's a book out there, I forget the name of it, the Mopai tradition, which I don't even know if it's real, to be honest with you. I haven't met anybody who really is from that. Maybe it is, maybe it is. For instance, the Mopai, the modern legend about it, the urban legend about the Mopai, is that they have so much energy in their dantian that they can, with their hands, they can project their energy and like knock over buildings or knock you down or push you or those kinds of things. That operates from the assumption that energy is something you have to build up inside of you and then push out. Tai Chi does that too. You see Tai Chi masters doing this and then moving people with their energy, supposedly. That comes from an assumption of how the energy works. And I'm not saying it's a wrong assumption, but once you make that assumption, then that's how you and energy will work with you. Now, I come from the spirit fighting tradition, which is very different. Now, your normal average person, assuming everything I'm saying is true, and I'm not saying it is, but let's just assume for argument's sake it is true. Your normal average fighter, if he goes up against one of these guys that has this powerful dantian and can push energy out their hands, he's going to go in and try and punch the guy, and he's going to go up against a big ball of energy, and he's not going to be able to touch the guy. Now, a spirit fighter, if he goes up to the guy with the big ball of energy, he's going to slice right through him. Or you slice right through them, and then the guy with all the energy has no defense against that. It's because we trained ourselves to fight hand to hand with demons. And a demon is not something you can fight with your fist. You have to slice through it with your energy. When you get touched with this, okay, so let's say again, the Tai Chi guy, he's going to push some guy. You've seen them do this where they're doing the push hands and then somebody will move and the guy will go flying back. Assuming it's true, he's using his internal energy to push the guy back. Spirit fighting, if I go up against somebody and I tap them, they don't go flying back, they crumple. Because it's the same thing, like if you've seen World War II movies, you see the guys running up the hill and then they just crumble. Those are the guys that just got shot. What happened? The bullet went right through them. And this is what happens with the energy that I give. When I hit you with the energy, it goes right through you and you crumple to the ground. You may have broken bones or whatever else, but totally different. So you're coming from the Mopai kind of tradition where you're trying to fill your dantian. And I can remember a guy who tried to train with somebody who was supposedly teaching him Mopai, and he ended up going to the hospital because he had this knot in his navel center, which Mopai tries to get you to smash all the energy into your navel center, into a hard rock, and it's really not natural. It's really, anytime you force anything, it's very unnatural. You're dealing with infinite energy, and you're trying to smash it into a small thing. So don't do that. Just stop doing that. Get rid of all those ideas about your dantian and smashing things into your dantian and putting things. Just change completely your dynamic. Become totally vulnerable. Become totally fluid. Become totally empty, and let the energy flow through you. And then you won't ever have to worry about that. So the fact that your dantian feels like a hard rock, again, means that you're trying to smash the energy into your body. And I'm talking about it too much because I really want you to change your idea about that. It's bothering me. That limitation, that fear-based limitation of trying to make, listen, I go to the gym and I lift weights and I like the idea of having big muscles and all that, but listen, I have no illusions. It's completely meaningless, ultimately. Somebody with a gun can take me out from across the street. It doesn't do anything really other than give me a sense of ego. I'm getting older, so I like that idea, but I would drop it in a second. If I decided I was going to train full-time in spirit fighting, I would drop the bodybuilding in a heartbeat, and I would get down to 160 pounds. So I want you to do that. If that's what you want to achieve with your Qigong, I want you to drop all that trying to energetically bodybuild, which is what you're doing, and just let it flow through you. All right, enough of that. I'll stop talking about it. Mad Sweeney's beer question: would you recommend any remedies for Trump's example of Ketu and Moon in the 10th and D9? Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, actually, Ketu and Moon in his 10th is the remedy for his Rahu and Sun in the 10th. So it is already his remedy. The remedy would be to tell the truth. The remedy would be to stop trying to control, because he doesn't have the ability to control anymore. Rahu and Sun in the 10th means he controls with an iron fist and gets everything he wants. Ketu and Moon says it's all going to slip through his fingers. He won't be able to figure out what he's doing from one moment to the next. And if he continues to try and be Rahu and Sun in the 10th, you just watch. I said it before and I was right. I'll say it again. He will condemn himself. His Ketu and his moon. His Ketu will take away his ability to think clearly and objectively, and he won't be able to prevent himself from just spilling the beans, and he'll be thinking that he's protecting himself. This is why his lawyers don't want him to talk to Mueller, because they know once Mueller gets him, he's going to ask him questions and he'll be able to keep asking questions. Whereas if Trump is like me, just if he only wants to go on to Fox News and talk, he can say whatever he wants to say and nobody challenges him or stops him and says, hey, wait a second. You just said this, but that is what really happened. But didn't you also say that in this? This is why, by the way, we don't even talk about it. He never does. What do you call those things? News conferences. Remember, he was getting on Hillary's case because Hillary wasn't doing any news conferences. He never does them. He's done less than any president in history. That's because he doesn't want anybody to challenge him. He doesn't want anybody to ask him specific questions or hold him to what he said or anything like that. He just wants to be able to say whatever he wants, just like I do. I want the same thing. I just want to be able to say whatever I want to say. Only ask me questions and don't don't contradict me. I'll block you. Or me and Trump have that in common. I'm not president of the United States, though. So the remedy for Ketu and Moon, again, you're asking the question like, what is the remedy for Ketu and Moon? Like that's a bad thing. That could mean if he chose to, he could become a very powerful shaman. He could become the most famous shaman in the world. But in order to do that, he would have to focus in on his vulnerability, and he would have to focus on humility. The moon says, I'm sorry. The moon tells the truth. The moon apologizes. The moon seeks to heal. The moon, he would have to completely shift his character and become a nurturer and a healer, and he would have to become a spiritual man because Ketu wants to take him out of this world. He would have to want to only focus on spiritual truth and not on money and reputation. Now, how many of you think that he can do that, even if you like him? How many of you think he'll wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm going to completely change my life around, and I'm just going to focus on becoming a shaman. I'm going to be the shaman president, and I'm only going to seek to heal everybody. He'd have to then say, we're going to change our immigration plans, and we're going to find ways to bring people over here who are trying to get out of countries where they're being oppressed, and we're going to help find jobs for the poor and equality. He would have to completely shift himself around 180 degrees, and I know that those of you who love Trump don't want him to do that. But that would be the remedy, and that is the remedy. So there's a judgment in your question that there's something wrong with that. The only thing wrong with it is that he isn't accepting what is trying to come out in him. And the more he fights it, the worse it's going to be for him. And that's true for everybody. That's what the Aruda is about, astrology.thunderwizard.com. If you fight your Aruda, which is your projection to the world, which is not what we're talking about here, I think I'd have to look at it. But if you fight your projection, then it just gets worse. Let's see, what is his projection? Sun is in the 10th house, 10th from the 10th. 10th from the 10th is the 7th. The 7th can't be the Aruda, so the 10th from that is the 4th. So his projection is what I just said. His projection, if he chose to accept it, would be the shaman. That's never going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen myself. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Anyway. That's got me very confused. How that could, I don't see that in him, so that's got me very confused. Anyway, I'll have to spend more time thinking about that. Let's move on. Passing Arcturus question, what is the most important thing you can do in your opinion in order to make a woman feel appreciated and happy when she's in your company? Most important thing you can do is stop worrying about what you can do in one single moment to get a woman's approval. You're coming from the complete wrong standpoint. Most important thing you can do is actually, when she's not around, become trusting, become emotionally available, become nurturing, kind, humble, dependable in your everyday life. You can't turn it on when she's there. If you don't have it in you, she's going to know. So I would completely shift your focus, and when you're alone, become those things and learn to enjoy that. One of the things that my fiance, the love of my life, the most incredible feminine being that has ever existed in this universe, it's my opinion, I could be wrong, it's absolutely my experience of her. One of the things that she said to me, bear in mind, for 30 years, I've been practicing trying to balance the yin and the yang, the male and the female within me. And, you know, again, what you see here is my aruda, my projection. When you watch me on video, all of those of you who either hate me or you're in love with me, you're only seeing my projection. You don't know who I am. It's not your fault. That's just the way it is. She knew me as I was. And anybody, and there's at least one or two people out there who have met me in person. And you know, when you meet me in person, I'm a very different person. I'm very, you almost have to ask me, can you speak up? I didn't hear what you said. Because I'm very, I'm very low key. I try very hard, to really be nurturing when I'm physically with somebody. I try to be kind. I know I still have an imposing, aura about me, but I'm very different in person than I am here. One of the things that she said was, what really attracted her was that she said that you have this, you're really masculine and really feminine all at the same time. Like I have really soft skin, that kind of stuff. That comes from a lot of Qigong, by the way. So I'm telling that to you because if you want to know what turns women on, is they want you to be a man in all of the right ways. They want you to own yourself. They want you to be able to have commitment and direction and integrity. They want you to be able to make choices and go after what you want. They want you to be a spiritual man because that's yang. Yang is in the temple doing the religion and blah, blah, blah. Yin is at home taking care of the home and nurturing, and I know that sounds stereotypical, but that's what we're talking about. First, you got to be that. You got to be a righteous man. You've got to be a man of your word. And I don't mean righteous in the religious way. I mean, true to your raito, your orlog. You have to be strong enough in yourself that you don't disempower other people, that you seek to be helpful. Like, again, let me give you an example. There's other places I go and my aruda comes out, and there are people that are afraid of me. And then this one woman needed, she needed an air conditioner, and I gave her a brand new air conditioner. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of man that they want. Women complain. The main complaint they have is, I want a man who I can depend on, who's going to be there for me when I need him. That's why they're always saying, I want, why can't you just tell the truth? Don't play games. That's what they mean when they say that. I don't want a man who plays games. You don't hear men say that as much. You say women say, I want a guy who isn't going to play games with my head and I can depend on him. They want a man that, they want you to know what they're thinking. Now that's ridiculous. But that represents they want you to be emotionally intuitive to them and be able to feel their emotions instead of try and fix them, which is what we do. They start to cry and we go, okay, all right, stop crying. What is the problem? Why don't we just go get this and get that? And if you just did that, then it would be all. That's not what they need. They need you to hug them and say, oh, I'm so sorry, that sounds so horrible. Yes, it was. It's totally horrible. Oh, that's so horrible. And you hug them. You stroke their back and you stroke their hair and you tell them how beautiful and sweet they are. Learn to be that kind of a person when you're by yourself. And then when you're with her, you don't have to try and figure out the one thing you can do to get. I mean, I don't do that. When I'm with a woman, in fact, I really like being alone with women because it gives me an opportunity. I really like, like energetically being there without having to say things, looking in their eyes and listening to them, that kind of stuff. I love doing that. And I love watching them open up when I do that. If you want to have a good sex life, learn how to do that kind of stuff. Doing things like giving gifts. The phone. Do you hear the phone? I don't know if my phone did. The phone agrees. Giving gifts. If you want to get laid, what you do is you give your wife or your girlfriend a card with a flower in it. It doesn't have to just, you're the most beautiful thing in the world. I love you. And then kiss her on the cheek and go to work. She will be turned on all day waiting for you to come home. Be that kind of a guy. And then she'll here's the thing. When you do that, here's the thing about women. When women see the man who has that strength in them and has that humility and has that nurturing about them, they will lie down in front of you like a dog and say, take me home, I'm yours. Because they will fully trust you, and that's what they want to do. They want to submit to your strength. But they first have to believe that they can trust you, that they're going to be safe, that their emotions will be safe in your strong arms. So, guys trying to get, it's funny to me that guys go out and try and figure out how to get laid. It's not that hard. It's not. Just be nice to them and touch them and listen to them and honestly want to hear what they have to say and share your emotions and your fears and your, just do that. I'm telling you, you do that, it makes me laugh. Guys try to figure women out. They're not that hard to figure out. All right. So I hope I answered your question. That was a good question. I'm glad you asked it. All right. And the phone says yes. The phone agrees. Let's see, where was I? I think I missed somebody's question. Nope. All right. Rintra's Roar. Question. Could that downfall to the 4th house? Again, you guys are hearing such negativity. Remember, everything is a projection. So when I tell you about Trump's downfall, your initial desire is to try and protect him or change it or ask how you could change that within yourself. It's because you see yourself in him. I mean, that's what politics is anyway, by the way. Politics has never had anything to do with the issues. That's why, one of the biggest downfalls of democracy is that people vote for who they want to be. So if Trump comes, or whoever comes and says, people made fun of Obama, yes we can and all that, and then people would say, how's that yes we can thing going now, Obama? Obama made his fair share of mistakes and his own screw-ups. Hillary probably would have been very interesting. She wouldn't have been able to get anything done because the gridlock would have been just horrific. But, politics is always about what you project, so it doesn't matter. This is why there's 35%, and a lot of you listening to me are part of that 35%, who see him as your savior because he says things that you want to be true about yourself. The reason why Trump can say, to the world, yeah, I can go up to women and grab them by the pussy and they let me do it because you can do anything when you're... The reason why he can get away with that is because there is a bunch of guys who want to be that. They want to be able to do that too. Now, Clinton can't get head in the Oval Office. That makes him, he destroys the office of the president, but Trump can get away with that. And the point is that we project what we want. And those are the people that we elect. That's why, you know, in the beginning, that's why Nixon lost to Kennedy, because Kennedy was just prettier and younger and all of that. So if we think it's anything more than that, we're wrong. It's nice when the two come together. So anyway, could that downfall to the fourth house make him search for foundation political support on people itself in an attempt to survive the overthrow? Could that lead to popular violence? Well, yeah, it already has. From the very beginning, that was going on. Do you remember when he stood up there and said, if you see whoever protests, he said, knock them out, punch them in the face. I mean, he was telling people, he was inciting his people to commit violence against, you know, people who were coming in and protesting. And we have it on, you know, we have it on, you know, you can go look at it if you remember it. You know, the guys walking up and guys just clocking people and knocking them to the ground because they were protesting. He's been doing it from the beginning. What do you think the whole march was? You know, the whole neo-Nazi march in DC. What do you think that was? What do you think? I mean, we've already seen it. There are people who are getting beat up for being Sikh, even though Sikhs aren't Muslim, but some of these idiots don't know the difference between a guy in a turban. They think everybody in a turban is a Muslim, and they don't understand that the Sikhs have been dealing with Muslim persecution for 400 years, far longer than we have. These idiot racist morons, but because of that, he's been inciting, of course. Absolutely. And he does seek political support from his base. Never in my life, 55 years of living, have I ever seen a president who's in office go and campaign for himself, to have rallies. I have never seen this, ever. What I see of presidents, and go back to any president before this, you see them working. They're off working. You almost never see them publicly. You never hear from them. This guy's tweeting to his base all the time. He goes and, you know, he's campaigning for other people, but he turns it into a rally. And it's the same people. If you've noticed, it's the same people who come to his rallies. I've never seen this in my life. Never. This guy has completely, totally upended and revolutionized everything we know about the presidency. And I don't care if you like him or hate him, it's the truth. But to answer your question, yes, he absolutely has been inciting violence from the beginning. I mean, he's inciting violence against journalists. By the way, there's a difference between a journalist and a news opinion guy. In case you don't know that. A journalist has to back up their stories with evidence. They can't just write a story. If they write a story that has specific facts, they have to back it up. Whereas Hannity, the Drudge Report, InfoWars, they are not journalists. They are opinion mongers. And they will admit it. If you ask them, they will say, I'm not a journalist. They only spout their opinions. They're not responsible for what they claim to be fact, because it's seen as entertainment and opinion. And Trump, when now his rallies, you've got people yelling and throwing things at the press who are there with cameras recording what this guy is saying. Yeah, he's absolutely inciting violence. All right. Where were we? Robin Pruitt understood. All right, so, okay. Cosmo Joe, question, what you say is totally right. Okay, so again, I want to see the question. So he's basically saying that my assessment of his mindset towards Qigong is right. Okay, so there we go. Ghost in the Machine, question, if Trump fails and is removed from office, what energy would replace his? I don't know. I thought if you were to ask me before the election, I was absolutely certain that he wasn't going to get elected. I mean, he didn't win the popular vote, as it turns out, but I never thought that he would win the Electoral College, and he did. But I also never thought he was going to make it, past and get, become the Republican nominee. So I have no idea now. I mean, I thought I knew what was going to happen, and he's lasted a lot longer. I have to say, though, what I see in his chart and what I'm seeing unfold in the news, you can't survive some of that. When it gets to the point where he is found and has confessed, and I think he will unknowingly, and he already has, he will unknowingly confess to some crimes in an attempt to defend himself. And what will happen is the Republican politicians who are rallying around him now because they don't want to piss off the Republican base. And trust me, if you don't think that's what they're doing, watch how fast they turn on him. They will turn on him. I can't tell you when, but I am absolutely convinced there will come a time when the Republicans in the House and in the Senate, they will turn on him. I don't know what's going to, it's the same with Nixon. Nixon had, at the end, when he resigned, he had 25% approval rating, and that was after the tapes came out where he was, where they caught him conspiring to, obstruct justice. Trump has done potentially far worse. He has potentially, and we don't know yet, the evidence hasn't been out, but the breadcrumbs seem to indicate that he has conspired with a foreign government to commit treason, amongst whatever other things that he may have done. Like, they may just find out that he's, lied on his taxes to such a degree that, it'll be intolerable. That we may find something else out. But I think what's really going to happen is we're going to find out that he unknowingly, in his hubris and his stupidity, Ketu and Moon together in the 10th house in the D9, he will be found guilty of conspiring, criminal conspiracy, and perhaps even they may find that he has committed treason. Like it or not like it, I've said it. We'll find out. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if I'm right, you being pissed off at me now isn't going to change that. But I don't have an agenda. I swear to you, I really don't. I don't have an agenda. I was not a Hillary fan. I liked the idea of Obama. I think it's a shame he wasn't able to do a lot of things he wanted because of the gridlock. And he did a lot of stupid things, and he did some things that weren't all that helpful. I thought that Hillary was probably going to be a really bad president simply because she wouldn't have been able to cooperate and get anything done. On the international stage, she would have probably been great, but domestically, she would have just tanked. So I'm trying to tell you, I don't really have an agenda one way or another. I really think that I'm seeing things objectively here, because I can watch both Fox News and MSNBC, and I can put the two together, and I can find where the happy medium is, if there is one. And those of you listening to me, if you can't stand watching Rachel Maddow for a half an hour without wanting to take your gun and shoot her, you're not able to hear the facts. Same with me. If I can't go and watch Fox News and listen to the news and listen for the truth in that, then I'm not objective either. Okay? We'll see what happens. What energy would replace this? What I wanted to say is, there is a balance in this universe. The universe is a universe of balance, and we can only go so far in one direction before the pendulum swings. Now, the pendulum has been swinging so far to the right, and it just hasn't stopped. It usually, it will usually get about this far, and then it would start swinging. But it's been swinging so far to the right. And, if you haven't been paying attention, there is a huge upsurge in, and by the way, I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm independent. I haven't been a political party for years, but I enjoy watching both sides. But if you haven't noticed, there is a huge upswelling of Democratic support. I have never seen here's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. When Republicans get really riled up, they do a lot more They do a lot more like Trump's rallies. They do a lot more public stuff. And with less effect. It's more for the experience. Republicans, when they're riled up, they want to talk about it more. They want to make a big stink about it. Here's what you don't understand about Democrats. The reason why whenever there's midterms election, Democrats don't turn out in numbers normally, because they have this feeling of let's let the system do its job. Let's try and vote this in, let's do that. So when it gets to the point that Democrats are protesting in the streets, you are going to see at the box office, you are going to see a flood of Democrats that will overwhelm the box office. They are waiting. They're in the background lifting weights, getting ready. They don't normally do that. Democrats don't like to make a big stink for the most part. If they do, it's usually the fringe ones, but the ones that want to make it, they wait. Republicans don't. Now, they turn out, and they are very good at playing dirty politics. They're extremely good at that. They're extremely good at bashing the opponent. And, Fox News is a perfect example. 90% of Fox News is talking shit about the other guy. Very little news, a lot of talking. But what you're going to see is, especially the people who feel that they have been minimized, minorities, blacks especially, you're not going to see them making a big noise. They're going to wait, and they're going to bide their time, and then en masse they're going to come together, and you're going to see things happen. And this is when elections get completely thrown in the other direction. This is when this kind of stuff happens. So to answer your question, the pendulum has been swinging so far to the right, and this is my right hand, I know it's your left, but it's been swinging so far to the right that it is hitting that point where when it comes back down the other way, watch what happens. We're going to have a completely democratically controlled government. Watch. You'll find I might be wrong, but this is what I've seen, and I've never felt anything like this. Never. A Republican, he gets pissed off, he's going to go shoot off a gun somewhere. Except for some of the really crazy Republican. There's a couple of, one Democrat guy took out that Republican. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but he shot that Republican guy. But most of them don't. They will bide their time. So the energy that's going to be replaced is going to be probably democratic socialism. There's going to be a big push for democratic socialism. I think it's already happened. So that's what you're going to see. Unions are going to get stronger, that kind of stuff. Passing Arcturus question, do we each create our own alternate reality based on our independent experience, or are we all part of a greater consciousness which exists as the combination of all karmic paths in existence? Well, you're trying to force your assumption down my throat that it's one or the other. And I'm not going to play. I'm not going to answer that question because you're trying to tell me, is all fruit a banana or is all fruit an orange? They're both fruits. And there are other fruits besides bananas and oranges. So the answer to your question is neither and both. Passing Arcturus question continued. Oh, well, there's more. Remember what I say, the longer the question, the more intellectualized your question is, which means you're trying to force me into your conclusion, which means you have a really strong emotional agenda that you're not aware of, and you're trying to use your intellect to get me to go where you want to go. Anyway, let's continue down your rabbit hole. Question continued, and if we each have our own independent reality tunnel, well, I didn't say that you did. So I haven't bought into that. Is using magic to influence that tunnel by manifesting ego desire keep us from greater destiny? So what you really want to ask me, to get all this bullshit out of the way and trying to lay these assumptions that you want me to tell you something. You want me to agree with you and tell you what you want to hear. What you really want to ask is, hey, Mike, is practicing magic helpful to me? And the short answer is that you practice magic all the time. It's an illusion to think that you don't practice magic. The kind of magic that you're talking about is you want to influence external reality because you think external reality is not working in your favor, which means you don't trust the universe, which means you feel like a victim, you feel weak, you feel vulnerable, and you're trying to change the rules so that things will go your way, because if you don't, things won't go your way. That's the only reason people do the kind of magic you're talking about. So the answer is to follow what I teach. Get rid of all fear-based belief systems. The universe is not out to get you. You are not a victim. The universe wants to give you everything that you need and want for your highest and most insane bliss. How do you get that? You ask yourself in every single moment, what is it that gives me joy? And go do that thing, no matter how scary it is and no matter what people say and don't, if they don't want you to do it. And then go through all of the transformation of facing your fears and your ego and go do that thing that you want, and you will never have to ask me this question. Because you'll get everything you want and beyond. Trust me on that. I'm experiencing that. I could go into it, but I'm getting tired of hearing myself brag. But that's how it works. Robin Pruitt, no disrespect, Michael. Okay, I don't know what's going on. No disrespect, Michael, but I'm going to ask Sethicus on your channel. Listen, if you want to ask Sethicus a question, email him. Don't do it on my channel. Whenever somebody says no disrespect, everything after that is going to be disrespectful. Come on. You're smarter than that. All right. Let's see, where were we? So passing Arcturus, this is the third time you've asked that question, continued. I've already answered it, so I'm not going to answer the same question the third time. All right. Ghost in the Machine question. Do you believe, I'm going to do this, okay, so whenever, by the way, everybody, whenever you use a curse word in this, YouTube automatically blocks it. Black Earth Productions said something brilliant, so I'm going to go ahead and show that. It says, politics is a fucking religion. Absolutely true. Just like people get their blinders all screwed up and when they're worshiping Jesus. The 35% who wear MAGA hats and go to Trump rallies and are sure that every other piece of information out there that is detrimental to Trump is fake news, they are worshiping Trump. It is a religion for them. It's true on the other side too, but in this case it's true. Ghost in the Machine question, do you believe a third party should rise and become part of this? Do I believe that? I don't have a belief about this. I mean, I honestly don't fucking care. I really honestly don't fucking care. Like I said, if this country falls apart, what's going to happen is that California is going to become its own country. And, the vast majority of Californians live in the city. They live in San Francisco or they live in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles and San Francisco, just the population of those two cities alone, will determine it'll become extremely different. And it'll be a totally different country. And it's one that I would be happy to live in. So I honestly don't care. Should a third party come up? The question is, will a third party come up? And what I'm seeing here is that, and I'm not, again, this isn't a judgment, I'm just telling you what I see. Like it or not, just watch what happens. The Republican Party is, if it survives this, I will be very surprised. Now, when I say survives, I'm talking like 5 or 10 years in the future. If 10 years from now, if there is a Republican Party and a Democratic Party, then I will be very surprised. What I think will happen is I think the Democratic Party will turn into still the Democratic Party, but it will be democratic socialism. Free health care, stuff like that. You know, a tax breakdown which is fairer to the middle and the lower classes. I think that will happen. Republicans used to be about fiscal responsibility. And fiscal responsibility and, I'm trying to find the word, international supremacy through diplomacy and trade and things like that. What Trump has done and what this has been happening, Trump is just the boil on the head of the zit. You know, this has been happening because of the Koch brothers. By the way, if you want to know who has been running conservative politics since the 80s, and I could go into it, it's the Koch brothers. All you have to do is Google them, you'll find out who they are. That they have been dismantling and changing the Republican Party and turning it into something that supports the super rich and giant corporations. And they have been slowly and they have been methodical and genius about taking away restrictions on you know, big giant corporations and, you know, oil companies from polluting. Big thing was polluting. I mean, that's their thing. They've been doing it under the radar. And they have been, I mean, you know, if you really, I'm talking to the 35% who, the QAnon people who honestly think that by supporting Trump, that they are supporting a revolution for the little guy. If that's what you honestly believe, I am asking you to take your emotions aside and go study the Koch brothers. Who they are, what they do. Those guys have been changing the political spectrum of this country for 30, 35 years. All in favor of them having as much money as possible, you as little money as possible, pay the least amount of taxes, and not to have any restrictions on how they, you know, make plastic and, you know, pollute. They want to be able to make, you know, whatever they want and not have to follow any restrictions. That's this whole anti-government thing has nothing to do with your freedom. They do things like support the NRA so that people can say freedom to have your own guns, and that's a distraction. What they really want is for you to think that they are supporting your right to your freedom, when what they really want to do is take away your ability to make money, to hold on to your money. And they want to take away anybody who will restrict them from polluting. You can tell I'm not really emotionally hyped up right now. You can tell. There are times I get really emotionally hyped up, and that's my emotional agenda. People start talking about racism, I get very upset. I'm not upset. I'm telling you the truth. This is the honest truth. The people that have been riling you up into thinking that you are fighting for your rights and your freedom under the Constitution have been this whole time trying to take away your money, your power, and your ability to protect your body. You can believe me or not believe me. I've been on this planet a while, and I've watched it. So, to answer your question, I think what's going to happen is I think that Democrats will become democratic socialists, and I think the Republican Party will probably splinter. I don't know how it's going to turn into whatever. I don't think we're going to have a two-party system. Here's what I think is possible. I'm just beginning to feel this. It may not be true. Who knows what will happen, because the Koch brothers are really powerful. So when somebody has that kind of money and that kind of power, you can't discount what they can accomplish. But I think what could happen is that the Democratic Party will become like a superpower. And the majority, in other words, there may be a majority of people who aren't Democratic Socialists, but there will be like the Tea Party, the Republican Party. There will be another party that will come up that will try to be the old Republican Party, like traditional Republicans. There's going to be the fascists and there's going to be the anarchists, so they're going to try and find a place. I don't know how many other little splinters could pop up. But if big business and big oil is not able to manipulate things to their advantage like they have been, then what I think will happen is you will see the Democratic Party will become Democratic Socialists, and they will have the majority of voters. I could be wrong, but that is definitely a trend that is in the making. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but I think it's going to try and happen. Let's put it that way. It may not succeed, but it's going to try and happen. All right. Yeah, so everybody's, even my friends are breaking my rules, and they're putting their opinions. I don't want your opinions, I only want questions. Oh, I'm getting rid of this guy right here. I'm not even going to mention him. See you later, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay, so that's it. There's no more questions. I don't think we're going to get any questions here anymore. I think I've pissed off enough people that yeah, I don't think there's any more questions going on. All right, so that's it for me, my friends. If you want a reading from me, you want to find out where your Rahu and your Ketu is. You want to find out how your D9 is evolving, how you are going to evolve into your D9, where your strengths are. If you want to find out what planets are going to get stronger over time, you want to find out what your projection to the world is, which will tell you how to best make money and to be successful, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. All right, Black Earth Production says he had a question up further up, so let me see if I can find it. So how far up? Was it before politics is an illusion? Going through some major shit. Trying to find your question here. Sethicus. Scrolling up all the way to the top, and I'm not seeing it. So if you want to ask it now, you can ask it again. And if it's not too whatever, I will answer for you. So I guess what I'm saying is, Black Earth Productions, ask your question again, and I'll answer it if you want. I'll try and answer it if I can. I'll try and answer it. I know there's a time lag, so I could sing and dance. I'm not going to. I can tell you what supplements I'm taking, which are making me feel very healthy. But anyway, so you still there, Black Earth? Justin Z, question, do you think Trump is on fire? That's really cute and funny. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think you're being serious. Black Earth, questions? No? Yes? All right. Take a break and come back, and if there's no more questions, then we'll end it for tonight. Alrighty. See if there's any. Did Black Earth Productions get his question in there? I guess not. All right. Well, I'm sorry I missed your question, my friend. That does happen. That's why I wish people didn't talk so much on here, because then every single written word would be a question and I could answer it. Although sometimes I do get so wrapped up in myself that I miss it. All right. Mastering Midgard has a question that I didn't get to. Oh, he has a few questions. Oh, there, no. Yeah, so Black Earth, I'm not finding your question for some reason. I'm sorry about that. There were some other questions that I did miss. See, I missed these questions, so please avoid the comments. The comment, I know everybody has a cute comment or has a deep thought, but it keeps me from answering people's questions. Mastering Midgard question, can you share your thoughts on the myth of Baldur's Dream? I can, but I'm not going to do it today. I've already spent a lot of time. I don't want to talk about something I haven't studied recently, and I haven't studied that recently, so I don't want to talk out of my rear end more than I already do. Cosmo Joe, is there any danger of attracting entities and parasites when sending energy out of body? No. Why would you think that? Entities, danger of attracting negative entities. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with attracting the positive ones. You want to attract the gods. You want to attract the ascended masters. You want to attract, beings that want to empower you. You want to attract a cute, sexy spouse, right? You want to attract things. There are some things you want to attract. But is there any danger of attracting entities and parasites when sending energy out of the body? I mean, again, do you hear the fear in that? Negative entities and parasites are looking for victims. Victims are weak. Victims hold things in. If they see you hoarding things, the more you hoard, the more stuff that can get stolen from you. When you are doing your energy work in such a way where you're trying to hold it all in and not let any out, they sniff you out. So the opposite of what you're asking is true. The more you try to hold your energy in, the more of a target you become, because they sense the fear. And there's a lot of energy for them to feed off of because you're trying to stuff it in and hold on to it. So no, when you send energy out of the body, especially like if you're doing the heaven and earth meditation and you're sending it straight up to the goddess and to the god and sending it down to the goddess through that kind of energy, being surrounded with life force energy, is not something that parasites want. They don't want that energy. They're afraid of that energy. So again, the assumption is that people are going to come and try and steal your life force energy. They don't want to steal your life force energy if you're plugged in, because they're trying to avoid that. But they do want to steal your energy if you're not plugged in. So there is truth. Like, this is why when you do chemicals, when you do hallucinogens, maybe this is why you're asking this, because it sounds similar. When you do that, you actually blow holes in your aura. And that is leaking energy, and that's different. So leaking energy is not the same as sending energy. So you're fine. If you're doing the energy work that I'm telling you to do, and you let the energy flow in and out and through you, you're not only not going to attract negative entities and parasites, you will drive them away. Remember, I teach spirit fighting. All of the stuff that I teach is based off of that, which means the energies that you tap into are going to drive away negativity. You don't have to worry about it. I don't carry a gun. I never have. The thought of carrying a gun to me sounds stupid. Because when you carry a gun, you attract that. And listen, I'm a martial artist. I've trained in all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you, even if a gang member has a gun and he's, 10 or 20 feet away from me, I can get to him and take him out a lot faster than he can pull that gun out and point it at me and shoot me. That is a lot easier than the guy who's doing it legally and has a gun in a holster with a strap with the safety on. By the time he gets to that, unstraps it, pulls it out, turns the safety up, it's all over. And there are plenty of guys walking around with guns who they get their guns stolen from them. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to get into guns. The thought process is you try so hard to protect yourself, you make yourself a target. That's what fear does to you. Mastering Midgard question, can you share on the subject of Gulveig and her connection to seed? Not today. I will try. Ask me another time. It's a good question. Ask me when I'm talking about that. All right, so I think I've gone through now, back up all the questions. Cosmo Joe asks again, can sending energy out attract entities? That's been my fear. So I just answered that. No. You got to change, any fear. Anything, let's just do this. Just write down all of your fears. Whenever you feel a fear, write it down. Do the exact opposite. Except for things like, what are the 3 fears that we're born with? We have a fear of heights, we have a fear of loud noises, and we have a fear of fast-moving objects. Those are things we're born with. Everything else is learned. Any other fear that you have, just drop it and do the opposite. The Exorcist was a movie. It's not real life. Cosmo Joe says he saw The Exorcist as a kid. Mastering Midgard question, have you thought about writing an updated new rune shamanism book? No, I have rune shamanism, rune divination, and advanced rune shamanism, and then I have all the other videos, and you can go to, if you want to see the new videos, rune certification.thunderwizard.com. There are some new videos there which have some updated thoughts about runes and rune shamanism. And that has all of my videos as well. So, I'm sure I will in the future, but there's so much information that I put out there. I'll probably have to write a book on the 9 worlds rune layout. Maybe that'll come later. All right, no more questions. I think I lost a few people. I'm sure there was at least a few people who unsubscribed. Well, I'm sure I'll get a lot of thumbs down and negative comments. I riled up the deplorables today. All right. That's all for me, my friends. I will see you next time. And remember what I said. Let's just watch the show. Here's the thing to do. All of those of you who are wanting to take Trump down, you think Trump is your enemy. Those of you who think that Trump is your savior, I strongly suggest that both of you just step back. Both sides just step back and watch the show. It is going to be so entertaining. And if you've ever wanted to see the elite be brought down, just keep your eyes open, because that is what's going to happen. If you're able to emotionally disconnect, this can be a very entertaining time. I'm very excited to see what happens, to be honest with you. I'm excited to see what new political parties rise up. And, this might be the Ragnarok of politics. I could be totally wrong about that, but this could be the beginning of Ragnarok when it comes to politics and the world order as we know it. And I plan to sit there with a front seat and enjoy it, in between surfing. So, anyway, that's it. Talk to you guys later, my friends. We see you next time.